Hey everyone, how's it going? CJ here, and WWDC 2018 has already come and gone. It seems like just yesterday they announced when and where the conference would be held, and now it's over. But that's a good thing, because now we know everything Apple has in store for all of its fall software updates. Honestly, the conference was a little underwhelming, but that was kinda expected from all the rumors talking about how iOS 12 wouldn't be that interesting because it's just focusing on performance and the big updates coming next year and all that stuff. So I mean, it was kind of underwhelming, but there's actually still quite a bit here, and I'm excited to share it with you all. So I mean, there were a lot of little changes, and so I'll try and roll through those kind of quickly, but for the bigger ones, I'll try and explain them more so that you can understand them and maybe give some of my opinions on them. And yeah, so here's everything you need to know from WWDC 2018. So Apple actually started off with iOS, and I thought that was kind of interesting that they started off with probably the biggest update, but they did, and I thought it was kind of cool actually. Good way to get things started. So Apple just started by talking about how iOS 11 is already supported on devices from 2013, like the iPhone 5S, and they talked about how it only took 7 weeks for half of eligible devices to be updated to iOS 11, and how 81% of eligible devices are updated to iOS 11 right now, which is really cool. And then they just jumped right in. They said iOS 12 is totally about performance, and they're going to focus on the older devices, make them faster, make them run more smoothly, which is really cool. I'm super excited for that. iOS 12 is going to be on all devices that support iOS 11, and it's cool that the speed should be noticeable on all devices, not just the old ones. But the old ones you're going to notice the most difference. They said that apps should load up to 40% faster, the keyboard should come up to 50% faster, and the camera from the lock screen should be ready to take pictures up to 70% faster, which is some big numbers. I'm really excited for the speed and performance. Apparently they worked really hard to be able to ramp up the processors in phones more quickly so that you have the power when you need it, and then they worked hard to get it to ramp back down when you don't need it to save battery life. Because generally processors ramp up super slowly and down super slowly, and so they just worked hard to get maximum performance as soon as possible, which should result in more speed on the older devices especially. And then they started talking about the actual features included in iOS 12. AR is a big deal now, especially in iOS 12, and they talked about how they worked with Pixar to create a new file type called USDZ to simplify, improve, and unify augmented reality. And this new file type is also coming to the Adobe Creative Cloud suite in order to advance AR. They introduced a new app called Measure, which allows you to use augmented reality to measure things and objects. It's really, really cool actually. And if the object is a rectangle, it automatically detects it, and it'll just tell you the measurements of stuff without even getting out a ruler, which is really cool. And they also incorporated USDZ into the News app so that you can get an augmented reality experience when reading an article, and they incorporated it into the web so that you can apparently create a custom guitar online and then see what it would look like in your house in augmented reality. And the addition of ARKit 2 allows multiple users to experience the same augmented reality on different devices, which is super cool. And they had people from LEGO come up and show how you could use the new augmented reality to make your LEGO sets come to life and complete missions and stuff like that. It was really cool. They also updated the Photos app so that you can search through your pictures, and it has search suggestions, and you can use multiple search terms, and you can search for places and events because it knows which events were happening in your area. And it has effects suggestions, so it tells you like, hey, this photo would look good with this effect, and you can choose to apply it or not. And it has sharing suggestions, so it can determine which people are in which photos and say like, hey, do you want to send these photos from this event to this other person because they were in them and you guys were at the same event together, and then the other person has the option to share their photos back with you, which is really cool. The updates to Siri include better suggestions, so Siri will have more context of what you do throughout your day and where you are, and be able to suggest things that are relevant to you. And Siri now has shortcuts. The whole shortcuts feature includes a whole new app where you can basically just make event lists of stuff for your phone to do. So like when I say, hey Siri, good morning, it'll turn on the lights and open the blinds and start playing music and show me the traffic and stuff like that, which is just basically like routines for Google, but it's good to see it on the iPhone. And then here's just basically a list of all the other stuff that came up. They added a sidebar for Apple News on the iPad. They redesigned the Stocks app for the iPhone and the iPad, and they incorporated Apple News into the Stocks app so you can watch your stocks and view the news at the same time. They updated voice memos, and now there's voice memos on the iPad, and there's iCloud support. They updated the Apple Books app, and now there's third-party navigation support in CarPlay. They also added a bunch of features to limit distractions and keep your focus during the day. They added Do Not Disturb during bedtime and in the morning so that you tap on your phone when you're ready to view all your notifications. They added ending times for Do Not Disturb based on your location and or calendar events. And you can also turn off notifications from specific apps right on the lock screen, which is really cool. They also finally added group notifications, which is a big deal. This has been in the making for a long time because the iPhone notifications are really messy right now, so group notifications, thank you. They also added an activity report for how much you use your phone, which it will give you weekly. And this will show you the time you've spent on it, the number of times you've picked it up during the day, and the number of notifications you get from each app. You can set app time limits for yourself, and now there's the ability for parents to do this for their kids, so they can limit their kids' time on their iPhones, and they can limit what kind of shows they watch with the ratings. They also add a new Animoji with tongue detection, and now there's Memoji, so you can make an Animoji of yourself. And they added these real-time effects in Messages and FaceTime. And the last big feature is Group FaceTime, which supports up to 32 people, which is a lot. That's crazy. So it's really good to finally see that. Now the next thing was watchOS 5. There's some stuff there, but not a whole lot. They just talked about how they worked really hard to make sure the activity tracking data on your watch is accurate. And they added activity competitions with other people and automatic workout starts and ends. The coolest thing is probably the new walkie-talkie feature, which, as the name suggests, just allows you to just directly talk to someone on your watch, which is really kind of cool. They made the Siri watch face better with integrated sports, maps, third-party apps, and heart rate information. And apparently now you can just raise your wrist to talk to Siri instead of saying, "Hey Siri," and the notifications on the watch are more interactive. You can view web links from mail or messages on your watch now. The Podcasts app is now on the watch, and you can customize the controls in the control center. They also added the ability for student ID cards to be put into wallets on the watch and your iPhone. And only a few colleges are supporting it right now, but as it grows, hopefully that will be a really cool feature. Now moving on to tvOS, there really wasn't much there. They talked about how you get free upgrades to 4K HDR on already purchased movies in your iTunes library where applicable, which is cool. And the other main thing was they added Dolby Atmos stereo sound. And movies that support that you already bought in your iTunes library will be automatically upgraded to that sound as well. Now they talked about how they introduced single sign-on for all of your TV services last year. Well, this year there's zero sign-on, so it'll detect from your Wi-Fi network somehow and automatically sign you in. I'm not sure how well that will work, but we'll see. And they just briefly mentioned how they're working to create new remotes with third parties that will work with the Apple TV, and they basically just advertised for the Apple TV app on all devices. Now the last big thing was the macOS update, and this year it's called macOS Mojave. They finally added a dark mode throughout the whole system UI, which is super cool, super awesome to finally see that. To go along with that, there's a new feature called Dynamic Desktop, which changes the mood of your desktop throughout the day, depending on the time of day. And there's a new feature called Desktop Stacks, which will automatically sort the files on your desktop to keep it clean and organized, which is really cool. There's a new view for Finder called Gallery View, and there's a new sidebar which shows the metadata for files and quick actions at the bottom. And these are also customizable, so you can add ones that you want to be there to get stuff done more quickly. There's a new quick look file preview with new actions to get stuff done more quickly, and they expanded the screenshot capabilities of the Mac by adding a thumbnail preview in the bottom right. And when you click on that, there's all your editing tools right there to get stuff done. It's kind of like iOS, and they also added video screen recording. There's also a feature called Continuity Camera, which allows you to use your phone's camera to take pictures and immediately import them into documents on your Mac, which looked super slick on stage. That's super cool. They also introduced the Home, Stock, News, and Voice Memo apps for the Mac. And then they talked about how they added a bunch of new security updates and improvements for the Mac. You know those share buttons and comment boxes that you see on websites? Well, apparently those can be used to track your device, and so Apple is shutting that down in the next versions of iOS and macOS, which is good. And then they talked about how the Mac App Store is completely redesigned now to look like the iOS one, and they talked about the Metal updates, which now allows you to use external GPUs with your Mac to get way better performance. And they talked about how this will help with machine learning in the future. And the last thing they mentioned is that they kind of took some framework from iOS and applied it to the Mac, and so this should help in the future with iOS updates running on the Mac, the ones that are good for it. So that should be interesting, and that's kind of cool. And yeah, that's about it for all they talked about at WWDC 2018. Hopefully you got all that. I tried to go through it quick enough to keep it entertaining, but still slow enough for you to understand, so hopefully that worked out well. Let me know what feature you like the best in the comments section down below. And also be on the lookout for more videos from me. I have some other ones that I'm working on right now that should be up pretty shortly within the next week or so. So stay tuned for that. Like the video if you liked it, and also subscribe if you'd like. And yeah, thanks for watching. Peace.